Hello, are we live? Hello, is this thing on? Hello. Hi, everybody. This is Doc Blackburn. Thank you for joining. What we're going to do today is talk about ransomware as it relates to healthcare. And it is a serious problem that we've got. Ransomware has been all over the news lately, and for all of the wrong reasons. And we're going to talk about ransomware in general. But what I want to do is frame this conversation in the context of what it means to healthcare organizations. The talk will focus a lot on direct patient care, hospitals, clinics, but it's also important when I say healthcare, it's important to also acknowledge that we're talking about clinical trials and human research testing and all sorts of things like that. And so it isn't just about patient care, but that's going to be my main focus because a lot of the issues that we're dealing with are affecting patients getting care from their doctors, from hospitals, and ransomware is getting in the way of that. I call it the triple threat to healthcare. Ransomware, for one, it's affecting the availability of information and systems, which directly impacts patient care. We've actually seen cases for many years in security. We've been discussing the possibility that eventually a ransomware attack is going to cause us loss of our systems or loss of data, and somebody's going to die. We knew that was going to happen, and unfortunately late last year in 2020 we do actually have a case where a patient passed away because their information was not available because of ransomware. And so that's a sad fact of life now. It's really scary when we look at the world in the sense of somebody sends packets at us through our network over the internet, and it can cause death. It can cause harm. Another case that we saw is with the with ransomware attacks against certain hospital systems. We've seen patients having to be rerouted to other hospitals. They're in the ambulance on their way to the emergency room, and the hospital says, don't send them here. We can't actually do anything for them because our systems are down. And so there are big problems there. Hi, everybody. Starting to see folks in the comment section. So when you're seeing the side of my face like this, I'm not ignoring you folks. Sorry, my chat is all the way over on this side here. So hello, everybody. Thanks for comments on the guitars and basses and all that. I got a bunch of them here. Kind of hard to show them all at the same time. But all right. I love the comment. Thanks, Abdullah. Let's see here. We've got people in South Florida, India, New York City. Awesome. Looks like Tampa, Maryland. All right, good stuff. And I like the comment of data security should be the main focus for every organization. Absolutely. And in fact, just this week, I am helping out with a security class where we are focusing on the fact that security isn't a IT security team issue. It's an organizational issue. It is a people issue. And data security is the most important thing for all of that. And I see Boston and Tokyo and Riyadh. Wow, UK. We've got Poland. Excellent. Representation all over the place. And hi T, Baby Yoda is with T there in Denver. Awesome. All right, in Turkey, great, good, great representation. So we just talked about the first problem. It threatens the availability of information and systems, and so it directly impacts patient care. The second one is the evolution of ransomware. We're going to talk a little bit, again, give you a brief history of ransomware, where it came from, where it's been headed, and then kind of let's talk a little bit about where it's going. But the evolution of ransomware is it's turning into blackmailware. What does that mean? Well, instead of just encrypting your data and your systems, rendering them useless to you, attackers are now starting to steal the data, or at least some of it, before they encrypt it, making it unavailable. And now it's threatening patients' right to privacy. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail and why that matters to us, especially in the US when it comes to HIPAA. We're going to discuss that. Now, I will be talking about the US regulations of HIPAA, the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act that was signed into law in 1996 in the US. I know with the international audience that we have here, for some of you, you're like, well, HIPAA doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to make this talk HIPAA-centric, but I will make mention for the US folks here, for whatever your regulations are for your jurisdiction and your country, you'll want to know what that looks like for you. I'm going to discuss HIPAA, but I don't know the regulations for, obviously, everybody here are from a lot of different areas. And so I won't be able to address it for everyone. I can see there's a lot of good conversations here. Stephen, if there are any, I've got Stephen Hart is helping me out here in the background. If there's any of those conversations that look to be a question that needs to be addressed by me, go ahead and throw it in there, and I'll quickly address them as they come in. But just so everybody knows, thank you for the comments so far. I won't be able to read and answer all of them in real time here, but hopefully I'll be able to handle as many as possible. And so that's the second one. It has evolved into blackmailware, and patients' privacy is of utmost importance. We need to protect the confidentiality of the information while also ensuring the availability. For those that are already in cybersecurity, you have probably heard of the CIA triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Of course, we all know that one. But a lot of people don't necessarily make the connection that the three of those, of the CIA triad, they can be in direct conflict with one another. For example, confidentiality and availability. I can keep information confidential easily, delete it, destroy it, it's gone, no problem. But now it's not usable. Oh, I broke the A in CIA, the availability piece. Doctors need this information. Patients need their information. There's a lot of different people involved in healthcare that need information available to them. And so what do I do to make it available? Is I open up some sort of access so that these people get access to this data, all right? So now people have access to the data, and when I give people access to the data, it means other people can access the data as well. There's no such thing as I am going to give access to just the people that need it and nobody else, and only the data that they need when they need it, and then that access is taken away immediately when it's no longer needed. That is an impossible task. That doesn't happen. And so if I am giving them access, availability, it means I am lowering confidentiality. I raise the availability of the information, and that lowers its confidentiality. Because the more I make the information available, the more likely I am going to expose that data to somebody who shouldn't have access to it. And so right there in healthcare, that's a huge problem. Our regulations for protecting patient data are focused mainly on the confidentiality of the information. We need to make sure that other people don't get these, get the EPHI, we call the Electronic Protected Health Information, is what HIPAA calls it in the US. And so we need to make sure to protect the confidentiality. The regulations say that we must, because privacy is, in the US, again, I'm going to use an example, the enforcement arm of protecting EPHI goes to the Office for Civil Rights in Health and Human Services. Yes, privacy of patients' information is considered a civil rights issue in the US. In your location, it may be a little different, but I'm betting it's very similar. And so we must protect the confidentiality. while also making it available. So where's that balance between the two? That's a hard thing to determine. All right. And so, and I'm seeing Mario says there needs to be a balance. LinkedIn user, I need a name like that. LinkedIn user says agreed, absolutely wonderful. Seeing the comments, hello from the Dominican Republic, another country. We got them all over the place. Excellent. And there was a hello from the USA, whatever that means, right? The USA covers quite a large area. That's awesome. All right, so that's 1 and 2. Threatens the availability of the information systems and impacts patient care. And ransomware can have a blackmailware component where they steal the data and hold it for ransom, not affecting your availability, but affecting the confidentiality. We'll talk about that in more detail, but there's 2 of the 3 problems so far. And the third one that is HIPAA-centric, I'm going to discuss it in the terms of HIPAA. In your country, it may mean something else, but ransomware infections in the US for EPHI are considered a HIPAA reportable event. It's likely that you have to report that as a breach, whether or not the information was of the patients was actually stolen. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. It has to be a balance, like all of that, and lots of hellos and all of that. St. Lucia, I don't even know where St. Lucia is. Argentina, great, real worldwide audience. I'm going to adjust the way that I present this. I was thinking I was going to have a lot of US people here, and I do, but we're getting it from everywhere. And so a user asked, can you discuss it in EU as well? I am not an expert in patient data laws in the EU, but I can speak a little to GDPR. And one of the things, so GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation. And one of the things that GDPR says, it's very HIPAA-like, where it says you must protect your user's information. Insert patient in place of the word user here, and it's the same situation. They expect confidentiality. In fact, in Europe, even more than the US, confidentiality is king. I expect privacy. As EU citizens would expect. And so speaking of GDPR, one of the things that I think is important to understand is that the GDPR regulations are rather new. They've only come out over the last few years. And one of the things when we're dealing with regulations, regulations are broad and general and vague, and they're subject to interpretation. So with GDPR being relatively new, I'm not aware. Folks, let me know in this chat channel if you know otherwise with GDPR. But personally, I'm not aware right now of any particular fines or findings when it comes to patient data and GDPR. I have not seen that. So the regulations of GDPR are broad and vague in general, and then the enforcement of them gives us an idea of where the regulators' minds are in protecting that data. And so I always like to use the what we've seen in enforcement to give us guidance as to more specifically what we should be doing. But for those in the US with HIPAA, the best way, HIPAA now was signed into law in 1996. So HIPAA is old, it's been around for a long time. We've seen lots of enforcement cases in the form of what they call resolution agreements. And anybody can look up those resolution agreements. All you have to do is just simply Google or Bing or whatever your search engine, DuckDuckGo, just do HIPAA resolution agreements. Stephen, go ahead and post that one real quick. HIPAA resolution agreements is where you can find information about the Office of Civil Rights enforcing HIPAA. Now with GDPR, I don't know of any specific enforcement, and I don't see anybody here posting anything specific to that enforcement. And so I think we're good there. With GDPR, we'll just have to see. And for other parts of the world, I'm blissfully unaware of regulations or enforcement in those areas. And so for those in these different countries, you'll all need to take a look at your regulations in your area. But my recommendations would be, if you've got regulations, what you really want to look at is the enforcement level of those regulations. So that's our triple threat there, is that it threatens the availability, it threatens the confidentiality, both of which are important to us in healthcare, and that it is likely a reportable event as well. All right, so let's talk about this concept of ransomware itself. First, let's talk about where it came from. Ransomware, would you believe that ransomware started in 1986? Like, wait a minute. Was there an internet in 1986? Whoa, no, there really wasn't. Yes, there was the ARPANET, the precursor to the internet. In 86, ransomware came in the form of, there were still viruses, infections, malware out there. Ransomware is just one form of malware. But in 1986, the data would be encrypted by the malware. And then on the screen would pop up a message, your data has been encrypted. If you want it back, you need to pay us in US dollars, send money through the mail physically, and we'll give you the keys to unlock your systems. I was like, wow, okay, that's a really old problem. Because to me, I was thinking ransomware, until I read that, I was thinking ransomware is relatively new, last 10, 15 years, right? And so in 86, first ransomware. And then things were rather calm and quiet until 2006, when internet-based ransomware became a thing. What happened was in 2006, we started really embracing the concept of having strong encryption. Encryption, it existed before the internet, yes, but it was usually used by kings and governments, and and before there were computers, people would encrypt their data to protect it. And so encryption has been around for a long time, but when it comes to strong encryption, using computers, it really didn't become an issue until, say, about the 70s, when I'm going to use a specific encryption algorithm, data encryption standard, also known as Lucifer, created by IBM, created the data encryption standard. And then AES ratified in 2001 advanced encryption standard, which is the underlying algorithm is Rijndael. And RSA, for RSA, the company, has RSA, the algorithm. And that's when we really started seeing, in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started seeing strong encryption, where you encrypt somebody's data and you do not allow them access to the key, they just will not be able to get that data. There's no, if you do it correctly, a good implementation means that there's no reversing that process for a very long time. The only real attack would be to brute force the encryption keys, which takes a long time. Yes, you can always guess the keys. It takes a very long time to do so. And so when this perfect encryption comes along, well, and I use it, I'm going to air quote that perfect encryption because implementations can be flawed. Yes, there can be problems in ransomware where the encryption can be broken, but it isn't a flaw of the algorithm. It's a flaw of the implementation. So we see there's a really great encryption, and then the advent of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, bum, 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 bum. So Bitcoin becomes a thing where it's digital currency. Remember, the first ransomware attack was a demand for US dollars. And so one of the challenges around ransomware before Bitcoin and before digital currency was the fact that we could freeze, we being, the government, a controlling agency, whatever, could freeze the funds of the attacker. And so it was less profitable to them. But with Bitcoin, decentralized, pseudo-anonymous. Some people call it anonymous, some say no, nonsense, it's not anonymous at all. It's pseudo-anonymous. We can see the money moving, the Bitcoin moving from one wallet to another. We may not know who owns that wallet necessarily, or who the true identity, what individual actually has control over that wallet, but we can see the movement of the money, right? And then attackers are going to encrypt your data using strong encryption, and then Bitcoin, which is a pseudo-anonymous, non-centralized currency where no government controls it. It's a consortium. Where you owning some ones and zeros means that they have value. Why? Because we said that they did, right? And so therefore, attackers could monetize this relationship of, oh, you don't have access to your data anymore and you want access? Okay, now you must pay a ransom through Bitcoin to get your data back. And now the attacker is much more assured control over their own destiny, over their own cash, right? So now we've got this great big problem here. The problems in the mid-aughts of 2000, around 2006, 2007, 2008, was that ransomware was very scattershot. A system would get infected through an email or a worm or an infected document, a virus or something like that. Malware gets on a system that infects the system, finds critical files. Like, what do you mean critical files? A lot of the ransomware would look for certain extensions like .jpeg, .doc, .pdf, databases, where people hold their sensitive information, like their My Documents folder or their desktop. So they look for certain types of data in certain locations, assume that that data has value to the owner of it, and then encrypts that data. All right, so that's what the malware would do, is find the data, then encrypt the data using a key, and then once they're done encrypting the data, they take the key off the system. So the actual user, the owner of the data, cannot decrypt that data. Now they've affected the availability of it, and then they demand a ransom. And the early versions of this scattershot was, oh, $300 in Bitcoin, $600 in Bitcoin. It was the same price no matter who you were, no matter how much data you had, it was the same price. And then when I first saw this, I said, wow, if they really realize what they've got here, it could be a huge problem. Fast forward to 2021, they know what they've got here, and it has become a huge problem. So we've evolved over time. What was the evolution like? Well, instead of $300 or $600 as a set amount, what the adversary started doing is asking, well, what system is this? Who owns it? And what's their likelihood to pay? And how much would they be willing to pay? And so the attackers started customizing the ransoms. Oh, I got a database of a large organization. Forget $600. I want $1 million or €1 million or whatever in your currency, whatever that high dollar amount is. Yeah, we're going to charge this customer more. Oh, for this other machine over here, it's just Doc's personal machine. He probably doesn't care too much. You know, we'll set it for $50. So the ransoms were being customized. And then worst case scenario happens. Affiliate model distribution for ransomware. It used to be in the early versions of ransomware, the maker of the ransomware would also distribute the ransomware. They would infect machines and they would collect the ransom, but it was all the same group. Now what we're seeing is this affiliate model where somebody makes the ransomware and then someone else, a different party, distributes the ransomware. And perhaps another group is collecting the funds. And then when a ransomware infection is successful and the ransom is collected, it's divided between the groups in some sort of a percentage. Wow, that's a concern. When that first started happening, I said, oh no, No, I can see where this is going. This is going to get really ugly in the future here, and it certainly has. So we've had the affiliate model distribution, but then people started getting smart. People were asking me when their systems got infected with ransomware, they would say, hey, Doc, my system was infected with ransomware, and what do I do about that? And I would say that, don't worry, this problem is easy to solve. What you need to do is you need to go back to a point in time when your data was not encrypted and back it up. They say, that isn't funny, Doc. I said, I'm not joking. I'm not laughing here. Because, and here's the most profound thing I'm going to say through this hour, all right? So notepads ready, Stephen ready for this one? Today is the yesterday of tomorrow. What does that mean? Back your stuff up today. All right, Stephen, did you get that? Today is the yesterday of tomorrow. So therefore, back up your stuff before. I like it. There we go. Before your data is encrypted. Do it today. Now that would be the only advice I'd give them. Just, back your stuff up so that you can recover from this. And people started getting good at that. They were listening to me. For once, people were listening to me. One of the nice things, if there's a silver lining to ransomware, it's that it got people to understand the importance of backups. Yeah, it's like, finally, some example I can give people where it speaks to them and so they have proper backups, all right? And so people start backing up their data, doing a good job. And then, since their data was backed up, they weren't paying the ransom. When the distributors of ransomware found this to be the case, they said, well, wait a minute, we need to change our tactics. People are getting smart, and we're not making as much money as we were before. They're telling us, no, we're not paying because we can just restore our systems. And so they said, well, what we're going to do now is before we encrypt your data, we're going to steal a copy of it, exfiltrate it out of your environment. We're going to keep a copy for ourselves, and then hold that data as ransom. Now, it's not affecting the availability of the data because you can recover, but it's affecting the confidentiality. Oh, in healthcare, yeah, both of those, that really hurts. Ouch, we got a problem now. And so we're seeing more and more attackers using this blackmail approach. And it really concerns me for a few different reasons. For one, backing up is no longer the only solution. Prevention becomes even more important. I need to prevent that from even happening because once the adversary has my data, there's no way to claw that data back anymore. So that's problem number one. But problem number two is that with this blackmail model, what happens if I pay the ransom and the attacker says, oh yeah, we'll delete your data if you pay the ransom? What if they don't delete the data? Do you have any assurance at all that they have deleted your data sets? You don't know. And so you could get re-victimized over and over again. Oh, you know what? This organization over here paid the ransom. Let's hit them up in a year. Let's see if their data is still worth something to them in a year. And so we've got a copy of their data. And so some folks will say, and I haven't been, there's been so many comments, I haven't been able to read and talk at the same time with them coming through. So sorry if I'm missing anything important. I'm sure there's lots of very salient points there. But I'm sure somebody along the line here is saying, well, wait a minute, with, oh wow, I just lost what the point I was going to make. It had to do with, it had to do with paying the ransom. Some folks say, in fact, I heard a student in a class today say, well, what if you pay the ransom and the attacker does not give you the encryption key? I assure you, when it comes to ransom and recovering your data, it's in the attacker's best interest that you're successful, that you are able to recover your data. Because the moment it starts becoming a problem, if I get my data encrypted and I pay the ransom and they don't give me the key, they don't honor their end of the agreement, and that hits the news, what's going to happen with people paying the ransom? Nobody will ever pay a ransom again because they're not honoring their commitment. And in fact, these people consider themselves to be legitimate business people. In fact, it's a lot of the ransomware is coming out of areas of what we call the RBN, the Russian Business Network. Now, it used to be I would really temper the way that I approached this part of the conversation. I think it's the Russians doing this, but we weren't 100% certain. But now, over the last 6 months, just through political events, through investigative reporting, folks, the cat's out of the bag. It's the Russians doing it, all right? It is the Russians. And that the Russian government is completely fine with this happening as long as they do two things. One, don't hack Russian interests. And in fact, you'll see in a lot of the ransomware, Russian IP addresses are hard-coded right into the ransomware as don't touch those systems in Russia. So rule number one, don't hack Russian interests. Rule number two, pay your taxes. As long as you do those two things, Russia's perfectly fine with this happening. All right. And in fact, we've been seeing it being encouraged by the Russian government. And so, yes, they will give you the keys. Yes, you will get your data decrypted. But with the blackmail area of them taking a copy of your data and holding that for ransom, the confidentiality, I cannot guarantee that. Plus, this is a relatively new thing. We haven't seen what the threat actors have been doing if somebody doesn't pay the ransom a whole lot yet. And so tune in, let's talk 6 months, a year from now, and let's talk about what that looks like in the future. Now, evolution of ransomware. We've got the customized ransom. We've got this model of distributions of the affiliate model, Blackmailware. And now today we are seeing the ransomware distributors and makers, those that are collecting the ransoms, they're now hiring professional negotiators to find that right price point. And so you call up their toll-free number. Great customer service, amazing customer service. When you call them, you will not be put on hold. You will get a live agent immediately that's friendly, speaks English or whatever language this is in very well. And they're a native speaker, and they are willing to help you. Let's make a deal. Oh, you can't afford $6 million? Will you take, in fact, we saw this one case where, and I'm off the top of my head, I don't remember the original ransom. It was in the millions. And the hospital actually talked them down to $80,000. Wow, well, that's very, isn't that nice? And these negotiators are further customizing the ransoms. What does that look like going into future? What does tomorrow look like? If I had a magic ball, I wouldn't and knew what the future looked like for sure with clarity, I would not be here discussing this with you right now. I would have $1 billion in the bank sitting on my private jet in my underwear eating Cheetos. All right, that's where I would be if I knew what don't worry about me though, I'm halfway there. I've got the underwear and the Cheetos. All right, but I don't know what the future looks like. But what I can tell you is that I'm more worried about the business model of ransomware and less concerned about the tactics, because the attackers know what they've got here. Ransomware is not going away. In fact, if I were to make any prediction, I would say we are not in the thick of it right now. This isn't the main course of ransomware, folks. We are still just learning what the attackers are capable of in using ransomware. Because one of the things that makes ransomware so enticing to them is the fact that the attackers can quickly and very directly monetize the attack. Because attackers like to spend as little effort attacking the systems and as little effort collecting value as possible. In the past, with credit card information, the attacker steals credit card information. Now they must sell this somewhere. And so they have to find a buyer, and going through all of that process can reduce a lot of the value for them. It takes a lot more time. Now they steal your data, they make it unavailable to you, and they can monetize it very quickly. And in fact, with a lot of the ransomware, we see a timer, and it's a matter of days. Pay in so many days or your data's gone. All right, so that we're just going to see the business model at that end get more sophisticated as time goes on. So now, how does this affect healthcare? Let's talk about the three main vectors of where ransomware is coming into healthcare organizations right now. All right, so industry specific, to hospitals and clinical trials, to research universities, human subjects research, all of these different areas. The general area of healthcare is we're seeing email attachments. And so somebody receives a phishing email from an attacker, they open that attachment, and their system is infected. All right, so that's one way that this is happening. The next is it may be a phishing email, but instead of an attachment, it's a malicious link. It's a link to a website that when the user clicks on this link, their system gets infected by what we call a drive-by download. And yes, just visiting a website can infect a system. And then the third one is related to those bad links. It's what we call malvertising. What is malvertising? So malvertising is getting malware through ads in web pages. Most sites on the internet today are free to use, right? And the big ones are YouTube, Facebook, Google, search engine, and all of those things. The LinkedIn, Twitter, they're all free to use because the site administrator is making money off of you visiting the site by showing you ads. All right, that's how the internet works today, and that's why most sites are free. And so you see ads. Because you see ads, your browser may be visiting malicious links. Because did you know, with most ads, the vast majority of ads on websites today are not ads that are being served by the website itself. So you go to Facebook and you see ads, they're not coming from Facebook. You go to LinkedIn, you see ads, they're not coming from LinkedIn. You're getting those ads from some sort of an ad agency that is paying the website for the website to show those ads. Now, who's responsible for the content of those ads? Not the ad website either. What they do is they're selling their service of, yeah, we can show your ad on a whole bunch of different websites. And so somebody pays the advertisement company money to, hey, show my ad on a bunch of sites. Now, do these advertising companies vet all of their customers? No, they're making money off of the ads. And so I can buy ads right now. I just go on a website, put in my credit card information, and buy ads. If that's the case, couldn't I deliver malicious code in that ad? And the answer is yes. So don't blame the website. Don't blame the advertiser. Blame the model itself, because it allows the attacker to put malware in perfectly legitimate websites. One example to give you is Forbes.com. Twice was serving malware through their ads. Was it Forbes' problem? Well, it was Forbes' problem in the news and in the court of public opinion, yes. But it wasn't Forbes serving the ads. The advertising company was. All right, so these malvertising links are just as bad as visiting bad links. And so we tell our users not to click on things that they're not supposed to, right? And so what do we do with all of this? I'll discuss that in about the last 10 to 15 minutes of our discussion here. But first, I want to give you some stats as to why this is a big problem in healthcare. In 2020, we have seen in healthcare, there were 92 different, what are we talking about here? Ransomware. 92 different ransomware attacks against healthcare around the world in 2020. That affected 600 different healthcare organizations of all different shapes and sizes. And it affected 18 million patient records. And it caused $20.8 billion in damage. Yes, that's billion with a B, not with an M. Billion. Now, how was that calculated? Through ransoms paid, downtime, cost to recover systems. And so all in all, ransomware cost healthcare more than $20 billion last year. That's quite significant. All right. So that's why we're focused on this. And so let's see here. I'm checking my notes real quick here, and I've got everything that I wanted to cover before I do the what to do part. What I'm going to do real quick here is just kind of take a look at some of the more recent comments and see if there's anything here that's worth mentioning. Some phishing emails pretend that they are victims, bosses, or coworker. Absolutely, that's a big problem. And we're actually going to talk about the solution in a little bit there. Western society has more to lose. Russians not. Automation not the same level. Life has less value. Interesting take on that. I hadn't viewed it in that way, in that frame before. So that's interesting. And so let's see here. We've got hosting my first company-wide cyber awareness town hall. Great, Elizabeth. That is one of the things that we're about to discuss in a little bit. Training and awareness is crucial, absolutely. And thank you, Paula, for the malvertising, spelling that out. And then the face palming, because it's now another, just a whole another sort of word that we made up. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, and Kenneth is saying, yeah, a coworker says they only go to reputable sites, and so it's like, no, you know what? Your web browser goes to so many different places. You don't know where your web browser has been, folks. So, absolutely, I really like that. What I'm going to do then is go ahead. Thanks for all of the comments. Sorry if I didn't get to yours. For the interest of time, I won't be able to get through all of them, because what I want to spend the rest of our time on here is to take a little bit of time to talk about what we do in healthcare to combat this problem. I've talked about some strategies already, but let's go ahead and run down the list here. First one that I already talked about is back your stuff up, all right? Make sure that you have viable backup copies. And when I say viable, that means not just backing up, but testing the restore. And one of the things that's very important in that area isn't that, can I restore my data? The question becomes, how long does it take to restore that data? I've been hired as a consultant many times, and actually I am sending out a response for a request for a proposal today to a large company, where they're asking me to do an assessment of, hey, Doc, if we get infected with ransomware, how long should we expect that it'll take for us to recover? And the person that I was talking to was quite insightful, because they said at best case scenario, it would take us, from what we've estimated, 3 days right now. And then we gave that information to the bosses, and the bosses said, oh, no, that's not acceptable. Do you know what? How long does it take to put a backup tape into a machine and let that restore run? We expect it to be hours, not days. In healthcare, now that organization isn't a healthcare specific organization, but when we talk about healthcare in general, when you're asking, well, how long will it take to restore data? Think about the impacts to patient care. Think about the impacts to the bottom line of the organization. Because if it's affecting patient care, that's a no-no for one. But let's look at other systems like HR database, or access to systems. Our authentication systems are down. Nobody can actually log into the systems. No new accounts can be created. Those areas are very problematic. Let's say people can't log in And if you've ever been in an ER, an emergency room, or have any procedures done, outpatient or inpatient, there's a lot of people accessing your information to make sure that they're getting things right. And so imagine they're in a situation where normally they've got their iPad and they're just, poop, 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 poop into the iPad. And they're like, can you verify your name for me? Date of birth? All right, great. And what are you here for? They ask you those things to make sure that they've got their information correct. Imagine they don't have that iPad in front of them because they can't log in anywhere because of ransomware. Now, paper records are almost just not a thing anymore. Imagine that process if they don't have access to that information. It is going to affect not only the patient care itself, but quality of experience, downtime, and all sorts of issues there. The next thing, so that was back up so you can restore your data and make sure that you have appropriate recovery time objectives, RTOs we call them, that your recovery time objective is in line with what leadership thinks it should be. For the example I just gave, leadership had an entirely different idea of how long they would be down than what reality was. The next one is reduce the privileges of your users. One of the most important things that I talk about is the principle of least privilege, that everyone can do everything they need to do their job and nothing more. We are really good at giving people access. For example, I hire Stephen Hart to join my company. Stephen Hart has a job to do. What does he do for me? He's a project manager. And so I go down the list here and I'm like, okay, he needs access to these files and those. And then I give it to the systems administrator and the systems admin makes it happen. And then later, Stephen's like, hey, I don't have access to generate those reports that you wanted, Doc. And so what do? I march over to the systems administrator and said, Stephen doesn't have access to do his job. Fix it. And the systems administrator says, he didn't check that box. Oh, well, fine, checked it. Now let's go. And so giving people access is easy. It's noisy. People notice when they don't have enough access. But the other piece, the and nothing more piece of least privilege, is that I don't give Stephen more access than what he needs. Stephen did a great job for me as a project manager. So now congratulations, Stephen, you are the vice president of operations or whatever. I promote Stephen. I go back to that systems admin and I said, hey, Stephen's now a VP, so I give him access to this other stuff. What didn't happen in that process? The old access wasn't taken away. Now, is Stephen going to notice? Stephen's not going to notice that he has too much access, because a question for you, do good employees know that they have access to things that they're not supposed to? Do good employees check? Is Stephen as a vice president going to check? No, because he's a good employee. He's not going to go poking around areas he's not supposed to. And so we need to be careful about limiting access to the data. But also, what can Stephen do on that system? The privileges that Stephen has. Can he access that database directly? Does he have the ability to log on to these servers? What can he do in accessing systems? Why is this so important when it comes to ransomware? Is that in most cases, ransomware, when it is initially run, it's malware that is run by a user. When any program is run by a user, that program is almost always run using the privileges of that user. So the malware, the ransomware, can do anything that Stephen can do. So we need to reduce that access, not because we don't trust Stephen, but because Stephen clicks on things that he's not supposed to, and he infects the system. And now that malware is running with his permissions, with his privileges. So therefore, we must reduce those. All right. And so we actually reduce the effectiveness of the malware itself. We didn't stop Stephen from becoming infected, maybe, but we reduced what that malware can actually do. The next one is user behavior monitoring. Our users have been given access, but There's certain access that would stand out from other types of access. Let's say I've got a doctor that sees, let's say the doctor has a caseload of, and I'm making a number up here, 15 to 20 patients a day. And he needs to maybe refill some prescriptions for folks and stuff. So maybe 30 patient records a day is what he's going to see. He has access to all of the patients in the database. So let's say it's 10,000 patients. And so he has access to all 10,000, but he's only accessing 30 a day. So let's set thresholds of, well, you know what? Stephen could have, Stephen's our doctor now. Stephen's got lots of jobs here. And so Stephen's the doctor. And so Stephen, you know, maybe he's having a really great day. He's blowing through a lot of work and he accessed 50, 60 patient records. So let's set a threshold as to the number of records that could be accessed in a day. And if Stephen ever hits that threshold, either we alert the security team, hey, this user's behavior is now out of the norm. Or it's, you get the idea there, right? I don't have to tell you the whole story. You get the idea. If malware starts accessing a lot of different patient records, because in order to encrypt the data, it must access the data. So malware accesses the data, then encrypts the data, then overwrites the legitimate data with the encrypted data. And so if Stephen has access to all 10,000, the malware can just run through all 10,000 very quickly. With user behavior monitoring, we say, well, wait a minute, Stephen just hit 50, an alert goes off, now 60, now 80, now 100, something's not right here, and we block him. And so we can reduce the effectiveness of the malware that way. Now, my next one here, we've already discussed in chat, is training and awareness. People need to understand when they see something to say something. I had a user working in a hospital who infected their system with ransomware, and they didn't realize it at first. All they know is that things stopped working for them. So, wait a minute, I can't access my files here. And you know what happened is it was late on Friday afternoon, and they're like, it's about time to quit anyway. I'll get to that Monday. And they left the office. They went home for the weekend. Ransomware then had time to infiltrate all of the systems and continue to infect. And so it isn't just about user awareness around not clicking on phishing, but if you see something strange, report it immediately, even if it seems like it's nothing. If that user had just done that, they could have saved that hospital millions of dollars in loss. And so make sure that your users understand what it is that they're looking for and understand how to report those problems. That also becomes a concern when we talk about breach notification. With HIPAA and whatever, with GDPR and all of those, you have a certain time period that once you know that there's a breach, you've got a certain time period to report that. And so user training and awareness around not just what to do, but the proper communication channels is of utmost importance to make sure that we understand what's going on so we can respond to the breach, yes, but also report in a timely manner. The next one is very easy to do. Set up domain block and allow lists. In your organization, maybe there's just certain domains that your users are allowed to go to. And so you allow lists just those domains. Well, if you can't determine what that list is to do allow listing, well, let's at least use a block list. And there's lots of automated block lists out there of, we know that these are malicious domains, and so we feed them into our intrusion prevention system or into our firewall, and those domains are automatically blocked. But related to that, talk about these two together, is as those phishing emails come in and somebody notices, oh, this is a phishing email, and through their training and awareness, they said, oh, I know to report it, they timely report this as a phishing email, our security operations team can spring into action and then block that, add that to the block list. And so, yes, that one user got the email. Yes, others may be clicking on the link right now, but we're blocking that outbound traffic based on the domain. And so there's lots of things that we can do there. And the last one that I've got has to do with attachments in email. All right, our big problem with email is links in the email. Yes, the other one is the attachments that can have malware in them. And I've got a profound question here for you folks. Ask yourselves this. Do you need attachments in email in your organization? A lot of organizations, when you ask them that question, they say, yes, we do. Wait a minute. Let me ask that again. You need documents. You need people to share information. Does it have to be attachments through email? Oh, it doesn't have to be through email, I guess. That's the easiest way. That's the way we've been doing it. Why have they been doing it that way? People are just trying to get work done. All right. And so your users aren't trying to do bad things. They're trying to get the job done. And so, and Uko is saying, or Yuko or Uko, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, are links better? So what I would say when it comes to sharing documents, what we want to do is give them a document sharing solution and then collaborate through that document sharing solution. Links then to those documents. So I put something in Dropbox and I send somebody a link. Yes, that improves things a little bit better, but I still have this user training method. What I would say is that try to keep all of this off of email itself, because email is plain text, unauthenticated communications. So I want to move to a system where I authenticate the users, I validate them, and then use that platform to then collaborate on document sharing, on information sharing. All right. So those are the things to do. Again, just real quickly, I'm going to recap. Make sure to back up and restore and understand what your recovery point objectives are. Reduce user privileges, monitor those users' behavior, training and awareness, so that people, when they see things, they say things, and they know who to say them to and what to, how to say them and what to say, and then block domains or whitelist domains and strip email attachments out. That will stop a lot of those. Remember our three main vectors for wrapping things up here, because we're in the last few minutes and I do have a hard stop in just a few at the top of the hour, is those three main vectors were phishing attachments, bad links in emails, and malvertising. And most of what we just talked about of what to do will stop the majority of those three vectors. With that being said, I'm just going to look over my notes real quick here, and I'm not getting all the updates there. And Jorge, real quick here, just because it happened to catch my eye, how good systems are, good are systems like Honeypot for training? Yes, so the Honeypots, which is a system where if people connect to that system, it has no legitimate business purpose, and so it must be an attacker or somebody who isn't supposed to be there, can be very useful. And thank you, Jorge, for mentioning that, because one other thing that I want to talk about real quickly is phishing expeditions, where you actually phish your own users. And so we'll be able to see who's clicking on these things and make it part of our awareness and training program. And I did see one last question. Elizabeth asked, can you share your notes? Stephen has my notes. Stephen, if you want to, can we put that in the comment section real quick so folks can copy and paste that? Basically, I've just got a quick little document here. You know what? At worst, what I can do is go ahead and pause your screen right now, folks. There's the notes. You can take picture of that notes real quick there. Make sure you get it all. There's all my notes right there, folks. And so you can pause the video. It's going to be online for you to view later. Now you can pause it and write down those notes. And there we go. Laura's got some good resources there as well. Folks, I've got a hard stop, so I am signing off. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you found this to be valuable. Again, my name is Doc Blackburn, and I am an author and instructor to the SEC 474 course of Building a Healthcare Security and Compliance Program. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Hope to talk to you later. Take care.